Burt Lancaster was born Burton Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913, in New York City. He was raised in a blue-collar household in East Harlem throughout the Great Depression. His mother, Elizabeth, and father, James Lancaster, ingrained in him a tough discipline and work ethic that would pervade his entire life. Even with financial difficulties, young Burt loved physical sports, especially gymnastics and acrobatics, which would later comprise much of his early profession. His sports ability at DeWitt Clinton High School led to a scholarship to New York University. But restless and adventurous as he was, he soon dropped out of college to become an acrobat in the circus and became a member of the legendary K Brothers Trapeze Act. This training not only honed his athleticism, but also worked on his stage presence and fearlessness, qualities that he would later find useful as an actor. World War II cut short his performance career when Lancaster joined the United States Army. He performed with distinction in the Special Services Division, entertaining troops and staging shows to uplift morale. His wartime experience deepened his understanding of humanity and hardship, giving him a quiet strength and empathy that later shaped his acting. After returning home, a chance encounter with a theatrical producer led him to the stage, where his magnetic presence caught the attention of Hollywood scouts. Before long, Burt Lancaster made his film debut in the noir classic The Killers, 1946, opposite Ava Gardner. His brooding, intense acting was charged and rich in emotional complexity. Overnight, he became a star, one of the most promising new stars of post-war Hollywood. In the 1950s and 1960s, Lancaster would not be typecast. He showed incredible range, from tough heroes to morally ambiguous characters. In From Here to Eternity, 1953, he delivered one of his most memorable performances as Sergeant Milton Warden, having a forbidden affair with Deborah Kerr in the classic beach scene that became a movie landmark. 8 Academy Awards followed, cementing his status as a leading dramatic star. He remained open to playing darker characters, like the cruel gossip columnist J.J. Hunsaker in Sweet Smell of Success, 1957, a lesson in masterful menace and cynicism. Apart from acting, Lancaster was an innovator behind the camera too. He co-founded the production company Hecht Hill Lancaster with Hecht and Hill in 1948, one of the first of its kind actor-owned companies in Hollywood. This gave him artistic control over his own work and the ability to produce films that had social and political agendas. Under this banner, he produced Marty, 1955, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture and highlighted the quiet dignity of ordinary people. His commitment to meaningful human-centered storytelling reflected his deep convictions and curiosity about the world. As his career evolved through the 1960s and 1970s, Lancaster transitioned from romantic leads to world-weary, complex characters that mirrored his own maturity. He received the Best Actor Oscar for Elmer Gantry, 1960, playing a charismatic but morally troubled preacher, a performance that fulfilled his fearless emotional range. Subsequently, in Birdman of Alcatraz, 1962, and Atlantic City, 1980, he demonstrated even more sensitivity and depth. His performance in Atlantic City, in a role with Susan Sarandon, brought him fresh praise and another Oscar nomination, vindicating his enduring mastery of the art. Offstage, Burt Lancaster was reputed to be a profoundly intelligent and socially aware man. Politically, he was vocal about his views, advocating civil rights, boycotting the Vietnam War, and championing liberal causes decades before it was trendy to do so in Hollywood. He was said to be intense and upstanding, but warm and charitable in spite of his intimidating presence. 3 times married and a father of 5 children, Lancaster held tight to family bonds in spite of the pressures of fame. Lancaster's own life was as complicated as his on-screen image. His first marriage, to June Ernst in 1935, was the naivety of his early, poverty-stricken years. They endured the deprivations of the Great Depression and his tentative start as a performer. Yet, as his aspirations increased, their paths parted, and they divorced in 1946. He married Norma Anderson later in the same year, and she became the mother of his 5 children and a stabilizing influence through his ascent to fame. Their marriage lasted more than 2 decades, but was dissolved in 1969 amid escalating tensions, driven by his work schedule and alleged infidelities. Later, Lancaster lived many years as a bachelor, dedicating his time to his work, children, and philanthropic causes. In 1990, when he was 77, he wedded Susan Martin, his third and last wife. By then, his health had weakened, and their marriage was founded on mutual respect, kindness, and tacit companionship. She stayed with him as he struggled with the outcomes of a stroke and failing health during his last years. When Lancaster died, his family converged on his Beverly Hills house, hoping to retrieve old photos, awards, and letters from his storied career. They did not anticipate a typed confession, hidden away in a drawer and stamped with his initials, BL. It started, asterisk, they say a man's life is measured by the love he gives and the love he hides. I have hidden mine long enough. In this private correspondence, Lancaster disclosed relationships and emotional realities never spoken of before in public. He described Cary Grant, indicating, asterisk, Cary was the first man who taught me that charm could be armor. We were both masters of performance, he with his effortless ease, me with my raw edges. There was a night after a studio party in '49 when we sat on his balcony in Palm Springs. He poured gin, I rolled cigarettes, and we talked about how it was so lonely to be loved by the world, but not known by anyone real. I guess that was the night I knew love could masquerade as laughter, asterisk. He talked about Grant as a gentleman of masks, a man he desired and envied but could never be possessed by. Their friendship, he admitted, was tinged with tension, desire beneath denial. And then there was the further revelation, his relationship with J. Edgar Hoover. People will never believe this one, he said, asterisk, but Hoover was captivated by me. It wasn't love, it was control. He wanted to possess everyone he couldn't be. He'd invite me to dinner, discuss patriotism, and watch my every step like a hawk. One evening he said to me, you could kill men with a smile, Burt. I laughed, but he was serious. Hoover did not love. Hoover collected, asterisk. The note hinted that Lancaster's dealings with Hoover were far more psychological and less romantic, a tense dance of curiosity, power, and terror that mirrored the seedy undertones of Cold War Hollywood. Of Rock Hudson, Lancaster wrote with sadness and affection. Rock was innocence, sweet, quiet, always worried about getting caught. I recall holding him once after a rap party when he said, you don't think they'll ever let us just be, do you? I said to him, no, Rock, they won't. But we'll make them believe our lies, so well they'll think they're truth. He smiled through tears. That shattered me. The tone betrayed Lancaster's close love for Hudson, a mutual comprehension of the dual lives they had to live in a Hollywood that valued illusion more than truth. Underneath the glitz, both men lived with secrets and isolation, their friendship defined by tenderness and fear in equal proportions. Of Ricky Nelson, Lancaster's voice held regret and protectiveness. Ricky was the kid I saw too much of myself in, hungry, confused, and seeking approval in all the wrong faces. I was too old to fall for him, but I did. I tried to shield him from the wolves in the business. Perhaps I became one too in the process. The note was a portrait of mentorship that faded into passion, of an old Hollywood hand struggling and failing to stay aloof. It was an acknowledgement of guilt and desire, a portrait of a man torn between caring and wanting. On Marlon Brando, the tone changed, raw and explosive. Marlon was chaos, beautiful, dangerous chaos. He challenged everything I thought I knew about masculinity. He mocked my control, laughed at my discipline. We fought one night, then kissed, then fought again. He said to me, "You're afraid to feel, Burt." Perhaps he was correct. Marlon never dreaded emotion. He lived it. I merely acted it. Theirs, as Lancaster told of it, was a storm-like relationship, brief, electric, unforgettable. Brando, the rebellion icon, was also a mirror and a mirror breaker for Lancaster, challenging him to confront his own constraints. Lancaster's words mellowed upon Montgomery Clift. Monty was the kindest spirit I ever knew. He wore his pain like a halo, silently and without complaint. I think I loved him most because he didn't need me to be the hero. He pierced the armor. We'd sit for hours, not saying much, just being. Two men pretending the world outside didn't exist. The letter lingered on Cliff's vulnerability, his addictions, and the quiet tragedy that haunted him. Lancaster's tone was not one of scandal, but of sorrow, a lament for a man he admired and perhaps the only one who truly saw him. On Ava Gardner, the mood ignited with passion. Ava was the sort of woman you couldn't forget however hard you tried. She was fire. She didn't scorch you, she engulfed you. We had an affair in the killer's years, and I promise that I discovered more about lust and rebellion from her than from anyone else. She once said to me, "You're too serious, Burt. Life's not a war." But to me it was. Ava was both mirror and muse, a woman who was as intense as he and would not be vanquished. She was the symbol of rebellion and Liberty Lancaster, both wanted and dreaded. Of Marilyn Monroe, his voice changed to soft regret. Marilyn was a poem written in pain. People believed she was delicate, but they never saw how desperately she wished to be understood. I recall her saying to me, "I'm not dumb, Burt. I just play it that way." We spent a weekend in Palm Springs one time, two lonely folks attempting to be noticed. She cried that evening, and I did not know how to console her. I wish I still had. His account of Monroe seemed like an apology, not merely to her, but to everyone he could not rescue, including himself. About Elizabeth Taylor, Lancaster spoke with the authority of age. Elizabeth was royalty. She lived like she knew she'd be remembered. We met late, long after my youth had faded, and she told me, "You still have that dangerous smile, Burt." We were both survivors by then, two aging stars pretending not to fear the dark. She kissed me once and told me, "You should have written your story." Perhaps this note is my reply. There was a common sense between them, two giants who had survived their times, but bore the burden of what fame had exacted. The last lines of Lancaster's letter were scribbled out in a hurry, as if in an outburst of emotion. They'll remember the films, the biceps, the smile. Let them. But I hope someone someday reads this and knows I was more than a man of the movies. I was a man of love, too. Messy, secret, and true. When the letter ceased, silence filled the room. The legend of Burt Lancaster, the stoic adventurer, the iron-jawed hero, yielded to something much more mortal. Ultimately, his greatest performance may not have been on film at all, but in this confession, an unself-conscious act of truth, penned not for glory, but for the serenity that comes with being seen at last.